Did you know the convergence of IoT, AI, and holographic computing has a lot in common with soccer? I'm Tanya Hall for ZDNet, and joining me is Ryan Peterson. He is the CEO at Finger Food Studios. Welcome, Ryan.
Well, thank you very much for having me today.
Absolutely. What does Finger Food Studios do?
Well, we're actually a technical design firm based up in Vancouver, Canada, and we've been working a lot with clients on kind of this industry 4.0, but really how to apply kind of these latest exponential technologies, whether it's IoT or holographic computing or artificial intelligence, to really just solve business problems.
You're on a panel at South by Southwest, the grand convergence of IoT, AR, and AI. Tell us about that.
Well, it's interesting. I think a lot of people, and we work with a lot of senior management teams at companies around the world, and I think a lot of companies are focused on, what are we doing with AI? What are we doing with robotics? What are we doing with AR and VR? But what really is, it's not these isolated technologies. It's really the convergence of that tech is radically transforming industry processes and or creating kind of new products and services. And I think that's what the talk's going to be about, is really getting people to think about technology a little more abstractly, about thinking how do they rethink their businesses in general with this kind of today and age, and how to really apply these technologies.
What is Industry 4.0? Explain that.
Yeah, now a little bit of buzzword bingo. I know people like buzzwords, but I think it was kind of framed about 3 years ago is that really you're seeing just a huge advances of productivity when we apply, say, AI to a business process. And what's happened is Industry 4.0 is really the digitization of workflow. And so a lot of businesses and companies around the world are having to decide whether or not they invest or not. And for those that don't invest, quite frankly, and you can see it, they're being kind of wiped out.
What does the conversions of IoT, AI, holographic computing mean to business?
It means, honestly rethinking the relationship with their customers, but also with their staff in general. So I think what, we're doing a lot of more human-centric design, where we're saying, how do we apply these technologies to increase and redefine how people work in general, but also how they actually really redefine the relationships from, say, one of our clients, we're with Lowe's, and they're using VR for training to really help their clientele overcome the fear of just remodeling their kitchen. So finding interesting problems with their clientele and how to use this technology to do that. So it's not just necessarily, the robotics isn't about automation, or I say it's not about getting rid of jobs. It's about redefining what work is to begin with.
What industries are already using HoloBridge technology, and how can companies leverage that tool?
Yeah, very good questions. So we have companies from our clients with Lowe's or Lululemon, all the way to the larger mining companies, to advanced manufacturing, such as a PACCAR, are leveraging these pieces of technologies to, again, change the way they do work. And I think one of the great examples, which probably made us most famous, was our client PACCAR did a project a couple of years ago on rethinking their design process around for truck design. So I don't know if you know this, but designing automobile design, when they want to visualize something, they've been using clay models for almost 100 years. And we walked in there, we're like, well, hey, have you thought of this? Is when the HoloLens was first being introduced. And so we created a tool to replace that process of clay modeling, to use the HoloLens to see the same thing, but in a virtual sense. And we were able to radically transform how they actually bring their time in to bring new designs to market. And that project itself actually is a kind of a reference project, and really is changing automobile design around the world, where most companies are now retiring clay and using virtual reality or mixed reality to actually do automobile design. So I think that's a really good example, a concrete example of how this technology can be used to really enhance what people are able to do. Like, no one lost their jobs with that project. They're just able to do so much more within the constraints and times that they're given.
So my question then would be, do we have the data access and the processing power to allow for real-time interaction between digital objectives and AR and VR and human users?
Yeah, I think, so talk about that convergence, like that's coming. I think the computing power is definitely there, except the Bitcoiners or Bitminers are using it right now. That's a joke. Yeah, I think I compete with graphics cards between, yeah, they're a hot commodity out there. But no, I think with, the introduction, say the HoloLens and some of these other mixed reality devices, really I think it's Gen 1. And once we get into Gen 2 and 3, we'll see and have better processing power. We're going to really untap the imagination of creators, or say the people that are listening to your podcast right now.
So what should companies avoid then when they're first trying these out? I mean, it's a lot to take in. And I would say a lot of decision makers are really just thinking, okay, we need to do this. But what is it what they should really avoid doing?
Yeah. So I don't know. Did you have kids?
I do not.
Oh, well, so if kids, well, I mean, if you have young kids, you'll appreciate this analogy. So usually if you throw a soccer ball in the field, what happens with young kids, they'll chase the ball around. Maybe the ball ends up in the goal, maybe it doesn't. And that's where new technology is for most companies. And so a lot of companies you find, they're either chasing, hey, what are we doing with AI? What are we doing in robotics? But there's no real strategy. And what you need to do is take a step back and really understand your business and understand your business workflow and understand problems you can actually solve. And then play a much more structured offense. So I say in a game of soccer, new technology is really just the positions. And your goal, right? Your goal is actually to score goals on business problems, just leveraging that tech. And a lot of times, the other thing is pitfalls is organizations have to be prepared just to ingest innovation. And that's the key things we've run into is that the defense, keeping with the soccer analogy, is actually your own company. People don't want to change. And so it takes the right, I think, organizational mindset from the CEO all the way down to the boots of ground, aligned to be able to facilitate that change. And so for that convergence and radical, innovation to happen at this kind of moment in time, let's just preface that as a true statement. Companies also have to prepare themselves for the organizational change necessary because work itself is changing.
It certainly is. And you guys are certainly helping push that along. I appreciate your time, Ryan. And hopefully people will be able to catch one of your panels at South by, or maybe they just want to connect with you and find out more about the work that you're doing. If they want to do so, how can they?
Best way you can go is just go to our website, www.fingerfoodstudios.com, or you can follow me on Twitter @Angriel99. And those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Thanks again, Ryan. And if you want to follow me in more of my interviews, you can do that right here on ZDNet, or find me on Tech Republic, or maybe find me on Twitter at Tanya Hall Radio, or find me on Facebook by searching for The Tanya Hall Show. Until next time.